The book that I chose for the book talk project is Curious George Goes to the Hospital by Margaret and H.A. Rey. The Reys are a married couple who hail from Germany, and they're in charge of writing and illustrating most of the original Curious George stories. This specific book was published in 1966, and the target age range for it is about 8 years and younger. It is fictional, like all of the Curious George stories are, and I ended up selecting this book because it was a family favorite when I was younger. Me and my brother are really big fans of Curious George, and I can see the importance behind Curious George's adventure in this story. This is the cover of the book. As you can see, Curious George is on it with many items that are associated with a hospital. And then on the back, you can see Curious George with a puzzle piece, and once you read the story, you figure out how that fits in. The first picture that I decided to show is on page 13. In this picture, Curious George is getting an X-ray. X-rays are things that are very scary for young children, especially if it's their first time in the hospital. Seeing a big machine like this might scare them, so I thought it was very important for children reading this book to see Curious George getting an X-ray and realize that maybe it's not that scary. The second picture I decided to show is on page 21. On this page, you can see Curious George being tended to by many nurses. Personally, I think that this picture can help children at the hospital feel more comfortable around nurses. As you can see, Curious George is getting his temperature taken, his blood pressure taken, and he's taking medication, which again are all things that could be scary for children if it's their first time ever seeing these things and having especially strangers giving these things to them. Last but not least, I decided to show the pictures on page 22 where Curious George gets a shot. As we all know, shots and needles are very scary for both children and adults alike in some cases. You can see up at the top, Curious George is very nervous to get the shot, but down at the bottom, he has his Band-Aid on and he is very happy that it is over with. I think that this is super important because I know a lot of people, including my brother, who was very scared of getting shots when he was growing up, and this definitely would have helped him feel more comfortable. Personally, I really enjoyed reading this Curious George story. It allowed me to reminisce on my childhood, and I would definitely recommend it for children, especially those who are visiting a hospital for either the first time or they're just nervous about going back after a couple visits. I think that this book is very helpful because going to the hospital is not always a fun experience. It really never is. And I know that I would have definitely appreciated this book when I was younger and I broke my arm. I had to go to the hospital and I was very nervous for a bunch of strangers to be checking me out and running all these tests on me. But I think that if I would have read this book and saw one of my favorite characters, like Curious George, going to the hospital and getting these tests done on him, I would have felt more comfortable.
This text can be used as a guide in children's literature for all kids who are struggling with the ideas of hospitals. I would recommend waiting rooms to always have this book handy so the scared children can have something to read and possibly cheer up. This is a piece of literature that young children will remember forever. It is very important that kids can learn about the difficult subjects or activities in a fun way, and personally, I think that book does just that.
I personally love this book and the story that it shows, and I really appreciate how 50 years after this book was published, it is still super popular and can influence children today. If children end up enjoying the Curious George books, they can go on to watch the television series and the movie adapted from the originals, and I think that that's great for children to have something to look forward to and to enjoy after reading a book and see the book come to life on the screen as well. I really recommend this book for all children, and I hope that they enjoy it.